Yeah, thank you for the introduction and thank you for having me. So, current drone wars. Armed conflicts and war have not changed in general. Also, this year, the world has seen war crimes and genocides. Civilians are still slaughtered and raped. Millions die of hunger. Millions are forced to leave their homes. But the bombardments have changed due to military advancement. The deployment of unmanned combat vehicles, of military drones, is noteworthy. Before I start, I want to announce a trigger warning. Inherently with this topic is violence. Some will be visible, others will be subtle. Drones have been used by the military a century ago. They have been a useful tool for information gathering and reconnaissance in World War I. In the 1930s and World War II, first remote control tanks and demolition vehicles emerged. Nowadays, in numerous conflicts, we see military unmanned vehicles in the sky, on the ground, on the water, and underwater. It is remarkable how modern drones significantly close the gap between sensor and shooter. On one side are micro-drones, like the Black Hornet, used in at least 50 countries by military and special operations or special forces for recon. On the other side of the scale are gigantic warships and torpedoes, such as the intercontinental nuclear-powered and nuclear-armed autonomous torpedo called Poseidon. A significant part of the development of unmanned vehicles is not arbitrary or by chance, but part of a long-lasting military strategy of applying machine intelligence to modern warfare. Autonomous weapon systems, such as the Patriot surface-to-air missile system, and loitering munition, a combination of drone and cruise missile, such as the Harpy or Harop, programmed to surveil an area and to attack enemies autonomously, have been around since the 1980s. But still, in current military programs, in particular in the US, in Europe and China, but also elsewhere, the advancement of autonomous combat actions as well as the teaming of drones with soldiers are primary objectives. The Future Combat Air System, a gigantic project which is, or maybe isn't anymore, conducted by the armament companies of Germany, France and Spain, is just one of many examples. The German company Helsing presented proudly the ability to let military jets fly autonomously and to react to threats. In DARPA's ACE program, a similar prototype, but for the F-16 fighter, have been developed after DeepMind demonstrated that a trained neural network can defeat human pilots in virtual reality dogfights. The goal, as Helsing puts it, is autonomous air dominance. The systems presented here are designed for the war of global rivals, adversaries of equal strength. The drone wars are in preparation, and some have started. A significant class of unmanned aerial vehicles are those flying at medium altitude with long endurance. Initially only available to the US and Israel, shortly after to the UK and China, the number of countries which produced or bought armed medium altitude long endurance drones have raised to almost 50. The first augmentation was due to Chinese exports of Wing Long in the Middle East and North Africa. The second was due to Turkish export of Bayraktar TB2. Costing only $1 to $2 million, they are comparable low-priced. TB2 have been widely used since 2016 in Syria to fight against the Kurds, and in 2019 in Libya, and also In Asakh, they played a central role in the long-lasting conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan, which continued in 2020. In the following, I would like to discuss 3 different conflicts: the Russian-Ukrainian war, the civil war in Myanmar, and the fight in the Middle East between Israel and Iran. And what are the perspectives? The full-scale invasion of Russia in Ukraine has unleashed a drone war unseen before. Moreover, it is a turning point in the use of military drones. Drones are not seen anymore as expensive and superior systems, but primarily as munition, as expendable items in a war of attrition. Since its beginning, a wide spectrum of use is used on both sides. The TB2 has been a real advantage for Ukraine for some time, but this changed quite quickly. Overall, the war is kind of a test bed. Russia, Ukraine, and the NATO are experimenting a lot with different kinds of drones, with frequencies and autonomy, always adapting to the enemy. Within weeks, prototypes are produced and tested in combat. Drones are used for recon, but a vast amount of kamikaze drones are deployed. On the front line, in particular, FPV drones are mostly deployed. Tactical, inspired by rebels, financially and organizational, furnished by civil society, this kind of loitering munition has been used since the early days of the invasion. This kind has been used from time to time in battles elsewhere for over 10 years now. And contrary to many expectations, these low-cost consumer drones have great relevance for this war. Usually equipped with a rocket-propelled grenade, they are remotely controlled into their target. First applied by Ukrainian forces, but quickly adapted by Russia, today drones are responsible for 70 to 80% of all human and material losses. The cost-benefit ratio is enormous. Several $100 drones can destroy tactical equipment such as tanks worth millions. Consequently, vehicles are more and more removed from the battlefield. Soldiers are marching several kilometers to reach the destination. Drones are omnipresent and created a transparent battle space with the aim of observing every movement. Within minutes, the drones arrive at the scene, ready to kill. An Ukrainian soldier, cited by the New York Times, said, "It feels like 1,000 snipers in the sky." FPV drones are used to burn enemies and hideouts, and, of course, to attack other drones. Both sides developed enormous production capabilities. Russia claims to produce currently 1.5 million small expendable drones, mostly quadcopters. Ukraine ramped its weapon factories as well and claims to produce 1 million. Taking both with a grain of salt, a high six-figure number is very realistic. Numbers on both sides are increasing. The claims are to reach 4.5 million each next year. In addition to these small quadcopters, larger kamikaze drones are produced. While Ukraine is able to produce approximately 30,000 fixed-wing UAVs with long range, Russia produces large quantities of guerre 2, which are the Iranian Shahed 136, which you see here in the picture. Using these and missiles, Russia attacks Ukrainian cities and infrastructure. every 2 days or so. Power cuts and blackouts are common. Just a few days ago, on 23rd, Russia launched 38 missiles and 635 of these Shahed drones overnight across in at least 13 regions. To fight back, FPV drones have been used by the Ukrainian secret services to destroy high-value targets. In June 2014, Ukrainian soldiers have used these FPV drones 600 kilometers behind the front line to destroy Russian stealth fighters, approximately worth $50 million. 1 year later, in Operation Spiderweb, the SBU conducted a coordinated strike on aircraft with 115 quadcopters in 5 locations. The SBU claims that 40 aircraft have been destroyed, including several with cruise missiles. Using long-range UAVs, where the level of autonomy is similar to one of a cruise missile, Ukraine attacked Russian oil depots and refineries, many of which deep behind the front line. And against the Russian army, Ukraine has developed in a very short period of time remote control exploding vessels and produces them in large scale. Using these, they were able to significantly reduce the Russian fleet. And they are also used against civilian oil tankers in the Black Sea. In this case, a Turkish oil tanker transporting sanctioned Russian oil. A different, but to some extent similar conflict is the resistance fight against the military after the coup in 2021 in Myanmar. The conflict is globally on 3rd position with respect to counted drone events. Short after the coup, hundreds of locally guerrilla groups took arms against the authoritarian regime. Not backed by a foreign state, the weaponry is much more DIY. Combat drones are built from commercial ones. Missing parts are ordered from China or self-produced using 3D printers. The used explosives are diverse as well, using what's available. People are sharing their knowledge offline and online to learn from each other and to provide blueprints. Resisting groups primarily use multi-rotor drones. Again, these low-cost but effective weapons have been successfully used against military checkpoints, convoys, and high-value assets such as helicopters. And in some operations, barracks, weapon factories, and military headquarters have been attacked. Overall, the guerrilla conducted 2,100 drone strikes. The numbers increased until late 2023, short after Operation 1027 took place. It was a large-scale operation of several resistance groups, yielding heavy losses on Myanmar military side and large territorial conquest by the rebels. The military reacted in 4 ways. Suppressing imports of drone parts from China, of course, jamming of frequencies of commercial UAVs, adapting the strategy and deploying small UAVs themselves, and increasing the number of airstrikes. Myanmar military airstrikes raised from 200 in 2023 to almost 1,200 in 2025. Overall, 2025 was the turning point where the regime again gained much power, much strength, with the help of its allies, Russia and China. But similar to the Ukrainian fighters, these fighting the superior power Russia, giving up is not an option for the resistance. Tactics and equipment, however, have to be adapted. Let us not focus on the third scene. Since and including October 7th event in 2023, numerous breathtaking and escalating events have taken place. Before we go into detail, let me quickly recall some facts of the abilities of the two states of deploying UAVs. Israel was the pioneer of modern drone technology and has since stayed at the forefront of military drone use. However, both Israel and Iran are manufacturing UAVs for reconnaissance and as munition since the 1980s. But Israel's arsenal is much diverse and advanced. Self-speaking, these sophisticated weapons are in frequent use. The global tendency of small multi-rotor drones are also here recognizable. And there's a shift from special forces to platoon level. Mostly for reconnaissance in urban areas, tactical drones became an extension of platoon-level soldiers deploying to see beyond the next corner, to deploy and explore a building or a subterranean complex, or to be used as a guided munition. The onset of the Hamas-Israeli war accelerated many programs with respect to small UAVs into action. In April 2024, the IDF system Lavender has been disclosed and has been in the news around the world. Using mostly data obtained from mass surveillance, the IDF has trained a neural network to identify features of suspected Hamas or Palestinian Islamic Jihad members. The IDF has then used the system for generating lists of potential targets and to estimate the likelihood of being a member. When the system was used to mark also the lower ranks, 37,000 Palestinians were on the list within weeks, and their homes potential airstrike targets. Then, usually at night, the attacks are conducted using dump bombs, but not drones. Quite simultaneously, on April 13, 2024, the Iranian armed forces conducted Operation True Promise. It was a collaboration with the Islamic resistance in Iraq, Lebanese Hezbollah, and the Yemeni Houthi. Iran launched around 170 Shahed, over 30 cruise missiles, and over 120 ballistic missiles. The attack was the largest attempted drone strike in history of the ongoing conflict, intended to overwhelm Israel's anti-aircraft defenses. However, 99% of the incoming weapons were destroyed by missile interception systems of Israel, the US, Jordan, the UK, and France. Israel's reaction was very different. A long-lasting operation became visible. On September 17th and 18th, 2024, thousands of handheld pagers and hundreds of walkie-talkies intended for use by Hezbollah detonated simultaneously in two separate events across Lebanon and Syria. And half a year ago, in June, Israel conducted Operation Rising Lion. It was an overnight activity aimed to neuter Iran's nuclear and long-range weapon capabilities. Israel's strikes have hit several Iranian military sites and nuclear facilities, such as uranium enrichment facilities in Natanz and Fordow, or the Nuclear Technology Center in Isfahan. With respect to the underground facilities, however, most of it with very limited effect. According to Iranian state media, leading military as well as 6 nuclear scientists have been assassinated. And according to Israeli officials, around 200 IAF aircraft have been involved in the operation, dropping around 330 munition. Short before the operation began, Israeli drones launched from within Iran struck dozens of radars and surface-to-air missile launchers. Other drones were launched by operators from within Iran to attack long-range surface-to-surface weapons. To sum up, the production of numbers is massive. We can see that in the Ukrainian and Russia-Ukrainian war, and in the war between Israel and Iraq. In the 3 cases I showed you, small quadcopters or multi-rotor UAVs in general play a significant role. Drones are still mainly remote controlled, but already often equipped with the autonomy of a cruise missile in order to crash into the target, even if the connection is lost. More and more, they are performing autonomous tasks. What are the perspectives? Ten years ago, in 2016, the US Department of Defense demonstrated one of the world's largest microdrone swarms. 103 small quadcopters have been dropped from 3 aircraft. They were about 15 centimeters in the width and performed specific tasks. In particular, collective decision-making and adaptive formation flying. A few months later, China showed the world that they can do the same, of course. And besides, these fully armed motherships have been developed, able to quickly release hundreds of quadcopters. A possible scenario interesting in this context is described in the document Künstliche Intelligenz für die Landstreitkräfte, which translates to Artificial Intelligence for the Army, published by the Bundeswehr in 2019. 15,000 autonomous drones of different kind and size are released from aircraft. They then form swarms to conduct different tasks, such as reconnaissance and combined attacks. 15,000 sounds insane, but it is in fact quite close to reality. As mentioned, Zelensky as well as Putin each claimed to ramp up production to 4.5 million FPV drones next year. This is approximately 12,000 a day. For some years now, startups are addressing the military market for smarter and interconnected weaponry. In the US, the production capacities are increased as well. Anduril's Arsenal 1, a huge $1 billion factory in Ohio, is just one prominent example. And as you all know, Europe doesn't want to fall behind. After the increase of NATO's budget several years ago, or by several members, this year, Rearm Europe, shortly after renamed to Readiness 2030, have been announced. The EU plans to spend almost €1 trillion in military programs and weapon systems in the next 5 years. This is approximately the amount the US spends every year, and split into 5 years, this is in between the amount China and Russia invest. Initially, a drone of walls was proposed, consisting of 10,000 armed drones surveilling the borders. Quickly, and due to the prompt racist agitation of the governments of Italy and Greece, the EU member states agreed to extend the purpose to monitor migration. Now, the European counter-drone system and the East Flank Watch, focused on land borders, are 2 of 4 central pillars of Readiness 2030. But drones are already present at EU borders. Frontex deploys since 2018 medium-altitude, long-endurance drones like Heron or Hermes 900 over the Mediterranean Sea to monitor migration routes. In June 2025, Frontex tested Shield's AI, autonomous reconnaissance drone VBAT, in Bulgaria. In more and more armed border conflicts, for example in the Kashmir conflict, drones play an important role. And more surveillance towers are deployed. In some cases, they are armed, as you can see here. It is an autonomous machine gun with thermal cameras and alert system, deployed in 2016 at the Turkish-Syrian border. When the system detects a human being, the system announces in 3 languages that the guarded zone should be left. If that doesn't happen promptly, the system shoots. US Customs and Border Protection operates Predators, and since 2020, small wing UAVs and Endurio Sentry, which are autonomous surveillance towers. In 2026, thousands of autonomous drones from UNDRAS are deployed as well. Similar in the at the UK border, where the Endurio AST has been deployed since 2022. Before that, they have used tailless watchkeepers and Hermes 900. It is clear Endurio builds weapons like the Bolt M FPV drones we are seeing here, and even though that these current drones and surveillance system in the US, in the UK, and by Frontex don't shoot, they are producing a deadly border where people are forced to take more risks, forced to take more deadly routes. And self-evident, this also changes the domestic landscape. Skydio, another US company, has become in a few years a multi-billion-dollar company and the largest drone manufacturer in the US. First, approaching the military. The company has now contracts with 800 law enforcement and security agencies. Their drones are launched hundreds of times a day, monitor people in towns and cities across the US. The early adopter, New York Police Department, has launched more than 20,000 drone flights in less than a year. The world is heating up. With it, more conflicts will arise. If global warming continues at the current rate, we are facing 3.5 degrees Celsius increase in the next 40 years. We have to face it that this increase will make huge parts of the Earth uninhabitable. About half the world's population will be forced to flee. We are facing a challenging dystopia. Many of us know the situation about people being pushed back and a militarized border regime, forcing people to take routes with low survival expectations. Fortresses are built, and fascist and authoritarian regimes are gaining power in many countries. We have to fight this.
Thank you, Leonard, for your impressive talk on this terrifying matter. So I know there are people already leaving. It's okay, but please do it quietly. We have now some minutes for a Q&A. So if you have a question, line up on the microphones. There are 4 in the middle rows, and there will be also the possibility to answer questions from the internet. Yes, and we'll start with microphone 1. And please be quiet.
Hello, thank you for the talk. As modern weapons are increasingly more advanced, also increasingly are more reliant on microchips, for example, or other technology. Do you think that a war between 2 large countries that produce these microchips might turn out to be more of a conventional war? For example, a war between China and America might first result in a wave where all factories that produce microchips are destroyed and no drones can be produced anymore. Is that something that you would expect, or do you think that drones will stay prevalent for all wars to come?
Well, I think that weapon factories, of course, will be attacked, and that states will try to claim most of the areas where resources are extracted, which are of strategic use. Of course, this includes materials used, for example, for chip production and the chip production industry in general.
Okay. Thank you.
So now, microphone 1 again, please.
First off, thank you for the very informative talk. I don't even think it's a question of if some of these companies are using open source technologies. It's been known that they use some. And I was wondering if during your research you learned anything about that, like what technologies they might use or abuse even against the policies of those projects.
Well, I learned that both open source and closed source or proprietary closed software has been used, and most of the software doesn't have any restriction in it, so it can be used by the military, of course, if it's not forbidden by the license.
Thank you. Are there questions from the internet? Yes? No? Okay. Then microphone 3, please.
You were talking, great talk first, then you were talking about basically the militarification of the border, but basically not against military targets like the Russians or something like this, but against basically, refugees. Is there already a change in the thoughts from the decision parties, or is this status quo?
That is both the case. So, as I mentioned, there are 2 important pillars. One is fighting, sozusagen ramping up the abilities to push back migrants at the border. And the second ability is to fight incoming drones. And this is still on the table, so there are still plans to be made to deploy 10,000 armed drones at the border, attacking then drones or attacking the other countries. Maybe that's enough.
Thank you. Microphone 2, please.
Yeah, with the rapid integration of these technologies and the known competence of all the states, are there any exploits or other attacks on these technologies by military actors, or examples of them?
Not that I'm aware of or can discuss here.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. Microphone 1.
Yeah, thank you for the great presentation. You mentioned that Europe has allocated a large budget to participate in this race. How much of the supply chain for this drone technology is actually a local supply chain in Europe versus sourcing technology from rivals or potential rivals?
Well, it depends on the, I think, on the, how you describe the system. If it's just, or if we focus on chip production, of course, we know that much of it is not in Europe. It's a globalized system, and most of the chips are produced in Taiwan. And of course, every company, every country is now more and more trying to build up chip factories in their own country, reducing dependencies, and also producing more and more weaponry in the countries as well. However, there are still lots of dependencies which are not so easy to lose.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Microphone 1.
When you showed the example with the drone swarm in the United States, the text said one of the things that they're able to do is self-healing. Do you know what's meant by that?
Yeah, that's a bit silly. It means that they are forming packs in a way, and then the healing means that the pack is still able to conduct certain tasks by some drones switching the pack, such that always certain drones with certain function are within such a group.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Microphone 3.
Yeah, thanks for the great talk. And how do you expect drone swarms to communicate when we have all the jammers?
Yes. Well, we have seen jamming in many conflicts, and however, still the drones are able to communicate in a way. So there's a constant race between the adversary jamming some frequencies and then the military adapting to others. So I think we will see the same here, that they are just enormously equipped with several sending devices sending them on different frequencies in different modes, such that when one frequency or several are jammed, they are still somehow able to communicate.
Thanks.
Or fall back on autonomous modes when there's nothing else possible.
Thank you. Microphone 1.
Yes, it seems like fiber optically controlled drones is a growing thing in the Russia-Ukrainian conflict. Have you seen that in the other conflicts as well, or are those still mostly radio-based?
I've seen it only there, so it is actually there a relatively new development, maybe to explain it to the audience. So instead of remotely controlled drones, they just equip the, for example, FPV drones then with 10 or 30 or 50 kilometers of fiber optic cable, and they are then flying around and just pull this cable with them. And it is relatively new, and we will see. I think it might happen that this will show up in Myanmar.
Thank you. Microphone 3.
Thanks for your talk. You mentioned the edge Israel has in drone technology, and indeed Germany is buying drones from Israel, is buying anti-air defense systems from Israel. Do you think reluctance on part of Germany and other European countries in upholding international law might be, in part, the reason for that is that they don't have domestic capabilities and they just want to be able to make use of this technology, so other matters have to take a second position to that?
Well, they are doing both. So, of course, in EU, they are currently using the drones produced by Ukrainian companies, but they are also trying to build them themselves. But so far, they were not able to do it in the same efficiency. However, maybe I don't get your point. What's your question again?
Yeah, what I'm wondering about is how big is the deficit in EU production of drones, and can that also influence political decisions here, because we don't have the know-how to build these drones or the systems to defend against drones completely in the EU, so we have to do trade-offs in other matters.
Yes, of course there are some trade-offs, and of course these programs like ReArm 2030 are exactly for that purpose, to strengthen the military complex here and to be able to produce equally or powerful drones.
Sadly, I have to cut you two off at this point, but where can people find you here when they have more questions? Then I would say maybe outside because of the next talks. So have a great applause for Leonard and his wonderful talk.